Well, hello, once again, welcome to the show Beyond the Stage with myself, Lyndon Peterson. So glad you're with us today. Once again, I'm so happy to present to you Beyond the Stage. You know the journey I've been on in ministry for over 30 years, in church ministry, music ministry for over 30 years. And my heart behind the show has always been to bring you into my life a little bit, to interview, engage with people that I've learned so much from over the years. And so today, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited today because I have somebody who's with me. But before we get to that, don't forget to please subscribe, click the notification bell, and also not to forget to please, if you want to give me feedback on the show, I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're interested in topics, I'd love to engage with them beyond the stage. I've lived my life for 30 years, so many years on stage, delivering, performing. Hey, where life really meets the tire, where life really meets the road is stuff that happens beyond the stage. So let's engage together. Today, I am so excited. Why this interview is because, you know, as musicians and singers and artists, we have this relationship, right, with our comrades, with our people, our sound engineers. We have this relationship, whether it's a good relationship or not such a good relationship. We have this relationship with our sound engineer. Today, I'm so privileged and blessed to have a friend of mine. I called him last week. I said, hey, would you mind coming on the show? This is what it's about. And he was like, yeah, I love giving back. I love to be a part of it, and I'm just blessed to have him with me today. And so I want to welcome today on the show with me, Cristo Hattingh. So I'm going to shake your hand and say, what's up?
What's up? Oh, it's a pleasure being here, man.
Thank
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming through. And so we've had a relationship for, over.
I can't count that I'm a sound guy. 1, 2, 1, 2.
What? Yeah. We've had a relationship, a friendship, at Rhema for majority of my growing up years. I remember doing this recording in 2010, a live recording with you. It was one of the youth albums that we did, and you were mixing, and I think we still had wedges back in the day. It was no in-ear monitors, and so old school. But I want to give some background to who you are, so that our folks know. Now I know that you're very conservative, behind the scenes, not up in front type of person, but Cristo Hattingh is a distinguished sound engineer based in Johannesburg, of course, South Africa, for those who are watching internationally, whose work has made a significant impact on this region's vibrant music and live sound scenes. With his years of hands-on experience in both studio recording and live event sound, Cristo has built a reputation of blending technical precision with an unmistakably creative flair. Cristo's expertise span across many genres, from pop to rock to electric to hip-hop, allowing him to adapt his sound to a wide variety of projects. Cristo has, I was doing some research over here, Cristo, and you've done some incredible events, ranging from the Starlight Classics events over the years.
Those are fun.
Yeah, Spirit of Praise, the Carnival City. Mango Groove recently last year.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah?
Yeah, good friends of mine.
Yeah.
I haven't worked with them in like 20 years, so they were a little bit short-handed, so I jumped in there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously, corporates, churches, studios. You run a company called Sound GP.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah, that's one of them. I mean, look at that. And the Academy of Sound Engineering. I often see the adverts when I'm driving along the traffic, along the roads, and I often see the adverts. I'm like, hey, Cristo, I think you teach there.
So interesting one there. My father started Academy of Sound Engineering back in 1997, and then I got involved when he passed in 2007.
Yep.
And I just recently climbed out of it from a training perspective. Still have a lot of students. Still have a lot of contact with the guys.
Yeah.
just on that note, I've started my own academy called SGP Academy,
Okay.
which is more skills development and mentoring than tertiary education. So it's a different type of training. Obviously, just based on where the industry is at and the amount of knowledge that needs to be passed on from different people, not just in the audio, and across the spectrum of the technical field. So lighting, AV, sound, structures, you name it. So that's where our focus is going with that. It's still young. I started doing it, registered it about a year ago. Started doing some small sessions, but watch the space. We're gonna. The aim is to empower and uplift across the board. So it's the next step from what ASE is doing. ASE is still going. They're still developing phenomenal ground-based education within our industry, and so obviously with coming post-COVID, we're in a new era of things, and our industry's changed a lot, whether it be in the church or in the secular market or wherever it is. The international market's opened a lot, so there's been quite a brain drain.
Oh, really?
One way of saying it. Guys going across, getting opportunities, which is great for them. But the skills, there's a bit of a gap in terms of opportunity. Not necessarily skills, but giving guys opportunity to grow. Because in our industry, it's very, very easy to quickly get into a rut and do what you do and develop yourself and be self-centered and self-focused and put your own muscle to the wheel, if you want to put it that way, develop yourself. Not everybody has the same opportunities or the same experiences, and guys like myself, when I'm over 35 now, there's a lot of opportunity to give back. So this is a way of me facilitating that in uplifting, upskilling guys for them to take the next step. Some guys by default do it automatically. Other guys don't know which way to go, what to do. Some guys come out of things like ASE. Some guys just, out of school, just jump straight in, didn't have anything. So we've partnered with Sakya, which is our secular body, for the guys to upskill themselves, get designations behind their names. Oh, man. And just
beautiful.
Really grow in terms of offerings that they can give. So if guys come in, whether it be a junior lighting tech, audio tech, backline tech, you've got a career path. Because you don't want to be doing the same thing you're doing now in 10 years. Because you're not growing. And one of the biggest ways, and then this, the best way to grow is to teach. And one of my dad's sayings, if you're not working yourself out of a job, you're doing something wrong.
100%.
So you have to be training, so that you can keep moving. You can't move forward if you're not training.
100%,
so, 100%. We got that off the cuff there, but that's one of the
reasons. That's brilliant.
This for me is a great.
That's brilliant.
Opportunity, because
that's brilliant.
You never know the audience you reach.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's the key.
Absolutely. I was saying to you off camera early on, you just got to be loyal to that, right? And just keep doing what you do, and be loyal to that. Kind of stick in your lane and do what you need to do.
And everybody has a platform. The size of the platforms differ.
100%.
But there's also an audience in front of every platform.
100%.
No matter the size of the platform.
So good, man. So good.
It's just because the people you see in front of you is a certain structure or stature or whatever, doesn't mean you can stop what you're doing, because you don't know what influence they get. So just keep growing. And if your stage is bigger, your audience is bigger, responsibility is bigger.
100%.
That's the thing, we all say it, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes, sir.
But
yes, sir.
You have the energy and the power inside you to share the knowledge that you have. Whether it's one thing or 100 things. And if you don't share it, it only stagnates within inside you.
100%. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So I mentioned early on just our background from church life, growing up together. How was that? How has that facilitated your growth as a sound engineer? I know that your dad, similar to my dad, was involved in ministry back in the day.
Yeah. So I mean, the short story is, in 1973, I think we were both born.
I was not born yet. No.
Okay.
No. Don't speak on my behalf. Okay.
1973, my parents started a gospel group called Impact.
Okay. Singing music.
A gospel, what you would in those days call the pop gospel group. and they toured a different church every second week of the month,
Oh, wow. Wow.
of the year for 10 years. And from I was born till I was 10,
Oh, for real?
it was just, I was in a bus every second week in a different town, every second week in a different church, hosted by different people, and that's just how I grew up. My uncle was on the drums, what became my other uncle was on the guitar, aunt was singing, my dad was preaching, my mom was singing. That was just, and the sound system, they traveled, because in those days you went to churches, there was nothing there.
100%.
So there was a trailer on the back of the bus, sound system up, praise and worship, preach, strike down, leave, next.
I love it.
And everything from Dutch reforms to AGMs to you name it.
I love it. I love
AFM,
it.
sorry.
I love it.
And then by the time I was 10, there was just too many families, too many kids, so they disbanded as such.
Okay.
But so for me it was just second nature in terms of when I was growing up.
100%,
I started getting involved in small things with my dad. I was always fascinated by the technical stuff. He obviously ran his business on the side, which was installation of sound systems and all that from early days.
That's right.
And then while I was at school, got involved in building and making and fixing, and so that was my weekends wasn't out in the field. It was out in the garage.
Yes.
And got into the technical aspect. Started mixing and working at church when I think I was 12 when I started working in the tape department, recording the sermons on a Sunday, then duplicating, coming in on the Saturdays, making labels, doing tapes with Jeff Burrell back then.
Okay.
And Rona Miller was in there.
Wow.
Janice, who's now Rob's wife.
Wow.
So it's, and then got involved with sound.
Yes.
The children's church.
Yes.
When I was like 13. And I remember one day, I think it was 15 or 16, and the guy that was supposed to do the mix in the studio didn't arrive.
Yeah. So
my dad said, just need someone to go do this. And he went back to the front, and I jumped in there and I got involved, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, man.
And then got involved with the youth, and it just kept going. And by the time I was 18, I would take my mom's car and go do jazz concerts in Aldo's and Innerdale and in Asia, and just while working during the day, and then on the weekends doing shows on a Saturday, and then back to church on a Sunday, and just it was the and the opportunity of being in it, but also Pastor Ray's favorite saying always was, you can work in a soap factory and still sing. So a lot of guys are in scenarios or in situations, but they're not either absorbing or utilizing the opportunity. And it's just, I suppose you can say it's in my genes. I absorbed it and just went with it. My two brothers, obviously musical. One went into technical with the IT stuff. Other one more into business and music. I just became the techie. But it's fun, and I think you look back now, and in retrospect, it's easy to see where you learned what you learned.
100%,
I remember when I was in my teenage years, my dad would run seminars for churches, technical stuff, and I would just hang around. I'd be there, and then he'll just quickly help here, help there, and then without realizing, I'm operating while he's teaching. And there's guys from all over the country, different churches, different things, and just getting that kind of experience. But in the moment, it's just got to do this again. I'm working and doing this. You don't realize what you're in, and when you look back at it, you realize the opportunity and what that instilled. I love teaching. Like you said earlier, I'm a very shy guy. I'm not upfront. But if you give me something within my genre and you put me in front of either 2 or 10,000 people, I'm comfortable. It's about, like you say, it's about giving back, and I don't know everything. But I keep learning. You can't keep teaching if you don't keep learning.
That's so good. Good.
And
so good.
Again, just pushing yourself. The youngsters these days, what they've got available to them in terms of resource, in terms of technology and all that kind of stuff, it's crazy. It's frustrating for me sometimes when you see guys, 100%. The questions they ask,
100%.
And I'm like, but it's all there. Just use it. And then you see other guys that don't have the same support structures behind them, just achieve because they're self-driven.
100%.
So
100%,
most of my training is mentorships. type training where I can, this is one of my sayings, I've said it, I can teach anybody a skill. I cannot teach you an understanding. So if you want to if I've got to teach you how to make coffee, I can show you how the machine works, assuming I know.
Cristo, man.
But
that is so
if
good.
you don't get why I'm making the coffee,
it's so good, man,
and why your taste of the coffee might be different to my experience, we can disconnect right there.
100%.
It's
okay. So my mind is going in so many different directions. Sorry. First, no, it's fine. I love it.
You gave me a mic.
No, it's absolutely. I love it. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. So I just want to go back very quickly. It seems. Do you think your dad was? Was he conscious of teaching you, or was it because there was a need that he was like? I think it could have been both, right? I don't want to talk on his behalf, but looking back at it now.
So the interesting thing is, and again, from my perspective, even when I left school, I started working for my dad, doing installations. I remember I was 18 years old. I think it was a month into my work life. I went off to Brits to go install a sound system by myself. And he just trusted me. But it's based on years of just, and again, the speakers I installed, I built. Because those days of sanctions, I did woodwork at school. That was my main subject.
You for real right now?
I was a carpenter by trade as a main skills development. So I was in my teens, I was building speaker boxes and stuff at home for my dad just as a hobby. And, we started selling them, and that's what we installed in churches all over the country. And they worked. Some of them are still up today.
Hey, listen.
But it was necessity at that time because you couldn't really get a lot of that product. But to answer your question, I think it was just, again, situational awareness and him needing someone that understands him, and me being his son.
I got you.
It was like an unspoken thing.
I got you.
Because in some ways we're very similar, in other ways we're very different. Him and my brother, everybody's got something,
Yeah.
And in all the years, even when I started working with him, I can count on maybe my two hands the amount of times we worked together.
Really?
He would often send me to do something. I would do something. He's over there, I'm over there. He's over there, I'm over there. We're together at the office, we're doing stuff, but it was never like we worked together for 6 years and then I went. It was like almost off the cuff. But it was a lot of understanding.
Yeah.
But also, looking back on it now, you can imagine the trust. But also the confidence it creates.
It's incredible.
And that's where people misunderstand mentorship in a big way these days.
Okay.
And discipleship, in a ministry context where you're training up guys, but you micromanage and you defend the micromanagement because I'm training. So you're over the shoulder and you teaching but criticizing. There's room for there's a fine line between what is micromanagement and what is mentoring. And it all comes down to a relationship between the two people, from a receiving and a giving perspective, and then also the situational awareness. Because some guys, not everybody learns in the same way. Some people need to make a mistake. Other people want to learn so they don't make a mistake. There's room for both sides. The one that wants to learn so he doesn't make a mistake is probably going to make the bigger mistake than the one that's making the small mistakes and learning quicker. Because it's background. I'm not professing mistakes of everybody, but it's just it's one of the ways you learn. In our sort of industry, creative space, there's no set rule. So it's not like you can learn it 100% and then never make a mistake.
100%, yeah.
The one
You're not studying medicine here.
Exactly, my daughter is. That's quite cool. And then, so it's a. Not everybody can be a mentor, which is also all right. You understand that some guys are.
So
they
it's
by
not their
nature
thing.
teachers, but not all teachers are mentors, and not all mentors are teachers.
Mm.
Some of the guys that I've worked with in the past, great individuals, they've got so much to share, but they don't know how. So it's how you approach them. So if you've got something that you want to learn from me, and you understand me as an individual, you'll know how to engage with me to get what you need.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Then I end up mentoring you without me realizing.
100%.
100%. It's like, but it's a skill on your side, not my side.
Yes, absolutely.
Some people are so focused in what they do. If you put an individual next to him and you tell him, teach him, they strike a blank.
Mm.
They don't, because their brain's not wired that way.
Mm.
And some people can't learn by just observing. You know, some people can sit and watch and watch and watch and watch. I remember a little Justin Chapman, I don't know if you remember him.
Yes.
When
Greg
he-
Chapman's son, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was interested in learning. Well, he was a young drummer. When he was in Randburg, still I helped him buy his first snare drum and all that kind of stuff. And then I saw him just sit behind a friend of mine, James Porter, for hours and hours during band practices, and he just sits there. He just sat and he watched and he watched and he watched. He never played with sticks, never fiddled, all that. But then he'd go home and practice, go home and practice. And then one day it's like,
He just got it.
unbelievable, you know. And some guys are like that. They can observe, and then they're contextualizing for themselves. Other people need to be in the chair, you know. They need to be in that hot seat, if you want to call it, to absorb correctly. So it's a different, and I think that's one of the things that's the way I teach and the way I observe things. I use the word perspective, context, and communication. Those are my three key. Context, communication, probably my two hottest ones, and then, but those will automatically generate a perspective. Your perspective of a situation can either tell you when to or when not to, and also just how to streamline something. You know, some guy, it's like I watch a lot of John Maxwell teachings.
Okay.
You know, sometimes, you know, when you're stuck in a problem, you know, the problem's staring you in the face, and that saying comes from, if you're standing in front of a mirror, but your nose is touching the mirror, the mirror's got the capability to show you everything. So the mirror is not the problem. You need to step back.
Yeah.
Step back from a situation.
Yeah.
Step back from the scenario.
So good.
And
So good.
sometimes the way you got to step back to get more perspective, bigger, and then when you step back and you get perspective, it's easier to step back, and it's easier.
100%.
But when you're stuck, you're stuck.
100%.
You know? And then also just the way, you know, one of his sayings, you know, things are going right, look out the window. Try and find someone to give the credit to. Things are going wrong, look back in the mirror. You know, it's just introspective.
Sure. Sure.
So
Yeah.
it can get very philosophical.
No. I get you though.
Not bad for Afrikaans boy from Benoni.
No, not bad at all. Not bad at all. And I think it alleviates frustration, right?
Yes.
It alleviates frustration when that communication and context is in place. I think that's one of the things that I've actually learned from you quite a bit. You've often said context. One of my favorite podcasters actually says Jesus is king and context is everything else.
Correct. Yeah.
You
I mean,
know?
I use this example. I've done a bunch of seminars over the years in churches, especially. Like a church would phone me and say, "Listen, we need a seminar with sound guys." And
Yeah.
I said, "Cool, I'll be there at 8 o'clock with them, and about 12 o'clock if the band can join." And why must the band come? Is my first teaching opportunity, because it's normally the music pastor or the pastor that's asking for the training for the sound guys, because they're the problem. You know,
100%.
you get it?
100%.
And then I want the band to join, and they're like, "But why do you need the band?" Like,
Yeah.
Well, therein lies the problem, number one.
100%.
I don't say that, but you jokingly said, you know, we have a relationship with them, which alludes to a separation.
100%, man.
You know.
No, I got you.
And it's like in any family, the communication and the context of that relationship. The them and us is a natural barrier, because the one's over there, the one's over there.
100%.
But when it becomes a physical
good,
thing,
man. So good.
it just separates. And then
So good.
the first thing that goes out the window is perspective.
Yes.
So
Just.
why do we need the band guys there? Because we're training the sound guys. But it's like telling me, why do I need to take a mechanic and show him his whole toolbox and spend 6 hours with him and his spanners, but you're never going to touch a car? You know.
It's so good, man.
So yes, you need to know the tools.
So
You
good.
need to understand their reasoning and their purpose.
So good.
But then apply.
Yeah.
And the car, being the band, or this, it's got a variety of functions, features, problems, issues, both ways. You know.
100%.
So, and then, you know, I do simple things. For example, when I get the band in, the first thing I do is I go on stage and I talk them through a process of, I use a sound check. They want to do a sound check, so they think they're going to get on there, do the best sound check. But then I get on stage and I say, let's do it this way. Let's talk about your layout on stage, where you are, place you in your environment, perspective, and what are the things you always struggle with. And I look at a layout of a band and I say, well, you normally struggle with this, you struggle with that, you struggle with that. I've never been to the church before. And I hit 20 nails on the head just from
that. Freaks me out how you can do
like,
that.
How do you know? Who told you?
Freaks me out.
But it's situational awareness, you know? And then what happens on a Sunday is he'll start, he'll do this, and then he'll do that, and before you know it, he does this again. And they're like, how do you know? Well, that's where experience comes in, but it's just human nature as well. So I would get the lead vocalist to talk on his microphone, and I say, for the whole band, I've done this with you guys in the past as well, where we've got like 12 wedges on stage, and I say, can you hear him? And they look at their monitor. No, he's not here. That was not my question. I said, can you hear him? It's like, yes, you can hear him. Well, then why does he have to be in your monitor? You can hear him. Again, your monitor is there to give you the opportunity to blend in with your surroundings, so it gives you what you need. If I can hear what I need over there, I don't have to put it here. It also forces you to lock in with what's around you. And that way, what's in your monitor is maybe your voice, your instrument. That's it.
Yeah.
Your dad was a key example of that.
Yeah.
His ways, and everybody used to laugh at him. He's so loud. The only thing in there is him. It's like, yeah, because he heard everything else around him. But I was in many situations with him where his monitor would stop working, and no one would know it. We'd speak about it afterwards, but he just keeps going. He just because again, context, understanding, situational awareness. If something goes wrong, the most inexperienced young church muso / worship leaders are so dependent on their safety blankets. I've seen them when their vocal monitors are not 100% or something. In rehearsals, you can do what you want, get yourself comfortable.
Yep.
But then once you're in front of the audience, the congregation, what is your one task? Guiding them. And they're watching you for guidance. So the minute you get distracted, they get distracted.
So good, Cristo. So good.
The minute you go look at your wedge and point at the sound guy, it takes you 5-6 minutes to get them back with you.
Absolutely.
For you, it's like a side thought. You look at them, point, go on. And then half like, what's wrong? Because they don't realize what you realize. Sorry. And like I always tell guitarists, or the classic example, everybody that plays guitar in a congregation watches the guitarist. What's he doing?
Absolutely.
Watching his feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So by him watching his feet and making changes, the guitarists are being led into what's he playing with. And then they listen, they watch his feet, and they figure out, now he's using that pedal, now he's... Where are you leading them from a worship leader?
It's so good.
So this is something where... Who said this? It was... I think it was Cristo Hattingh, actually.
Okay.
Many years ago. He was doing a seminar, and I said, if you're on stage, if everybody had to walk off the stage but you, would the people still be led in worship? And he's looking at everybody on stage, whether it's a choir member, a vocalist, guitarist, a drummer. So
good.
Which means if you're a guitarist,
such good questions.
Yes, you're there to play. You're not there to, the old saying that a band practice at church is not a time to learn your skill.
Yeah.
Come there prepared.
100%.
But which means when you're standing there playing guitar, your mission is the same as the worship leader.
100%.
You have got one lead worshiper, but you've got 20 worship leaders on stage. And people are, when they watch that, that's the perspective.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who's watching you.
Yeah.
Just because you're the second guitarist doesn't mean no one's watching you.
100%.
Just because you're the bassist, it's a lot to think about. And the same goes to the technical team. There's a camera guy on stage, if he's dressed badly, if his cable's all tangled and he's fiddling, it's distracting.
100%.
I've seen that, and same with the sound guy. Sure. Sound guy's on stage. If something happens on a stage, the way you deal with something, if you walk confidently to a scenario, fix it and walk back, 95% of the people don't notice you.
100%.
If you try and duck down and try and be obtrusive, it's a big word, everybody notices you. Because what's he doing? Because you're doing something outside of normal human behavior.
Yes.
And even the front of house guy mixing sound, someone's going to come up to you and ask you, where's the toilet? The tapes of the service cost?
Yeah.
Where can I buy coffee? The way you answer that can change how that person leaves. Church that day. It's been an awesome service. Everything was perfect. They come out, they want to know where they can get the tape of the service. And your interaction can send them home with, yes, that guy was rude, or was an awesome service.
100%. And that goes to say a lot about, I think, the way you've grown up, context, once again, church background, serving, that it's not just a gig or a job. And I think that's that goes to a lot to say about that too, right? It's
Exactly.
this is not just my job, but I'm actually here. There's a bigger thing here. People don't know necessarily what I do or my role or whatever the case is. It's so much bigger, right?
You see that in a lot of youngsters in the technical field, whether it be camera, audio, lighting, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
When they grow up through the church, they get opportunities out there quickly.
Yes.
And they get absorbed by the greater market because their attitudes are generally quite good.
Yes.
They're easy to communicate with.
Yes.
They're very skilled because they get a lot of opportunity in church. People don't realize the backing it can give you because it's continuous.
Absolutely.
It's quite challenging. There's a lot of demand from people. So, and then guys get opportunity out there and people enjoy working with them because they're team players often, quite easily. Not everybody. Some people have got attitudes, egos, doesn't matter where you come from. And then what I've seen is guys get to a point, get an opportunity, and then they're gone.
Yep.
And they stay on that level.
Okay.
That's the sad part. I've interacted with the guys over the years.
Okay.
I see a guy that I haven't seen in 20 years. He's still doing what we did 20 years ago.
Oh, really?
He's doing it very well.
Yeah.
But that's what he's still doing.
Wow.
And he's happy, but I'm like,
could there be more?
And I'm not. Some people choose to
100%.
to do something in a certain way. But even if you choose to be a car mechanic in 20 years' time, you're going to be a very good car mechanic, and you've trained people, and you've developed, and you're doing more efficient, There's ways of doing things differently. But when I talk about some guys that I've seen that do the same thing, they're doing the same thing.
Wow.
At the same level, you can see it in their communication skill. You can see it in their demeanors, where they just haven't developed. Sometimes it's because of lack of opportunity.
Yep.
Other times it's just, there's something, it's the flea in the jar mentality. There's something that's keeping you there. There's some really nice, skilled youngsters, which even I've decided not to work with.
Really?
Because skill up to level 20, potential up, but they're just not people. I can't trust them in front of a client. I can't trust him.
Really, Cristo?
To behave himself in a way that's number one, not going to make me look bad. Because if I put any individual onto a site,
they're representing you.
My side, they're representing me.
Sure.
If you can't keep your mouth shut and talk in a certain way, respectfully, behave respectfully,
my goodness,
the skill's second nature. Because most people that get onto a site these days, you're there because you can do something specific.
Yeah.
And you can do that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you can't keep your mouth shut at the right time, or
my goodness,
open at the right time. I've got one or two guys which are just too quiet.
Yeah.
Clients
you still have Johan with you? Is Johan still with you? Johan?
Yeah. But there's certain one youngster now that's working with us, which my whole thing with him is just up. He knows what he's doing, but I'm telling you need to believe that.
So good.
And people can see it in your face. Just put you in front of a client, and the client, if you're like, the client's like, they're like, can I trust this guy? I'm like, yes, you can. He knows what he's doing, but you got to show it.
Yeah.
And then vice versa. Another guy that sort of knows what he's doing, but he's too loud. He gets involved with this and that, sticks his nose in where he's not supposed to. And then that creates other challenges.
Yeah.
So it's that awareness and that context which just drives, And
so good.
It's an ongoing thing.
I think you've taught us. You've taught us already so much, and it's like we haven't even gotten to some of our questions as yet. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. Question one, yes, that was introduction, folks. But as you can see, there's just such a wealth on the inside of you, and I think that's why I wanted you here today. It was like there's just such a wealth, and when we've chatted like this in my office back at Rayma, I'm like, oh my hat, and you'd say stuff, and you'd be just like, wow, okay, cool, and you've been very instrumental in that regard, and that's why I wanted to have you here today. But okay, so helping musicians and singers improve. Okay, jotted a couple of questions here, which I sent to you as well, and this could branch off in different conversations, but let's have a bit of fun. Okay, the mic matters. Many singers don't think about microphone technique. Sorry, my notes over here. What are some practical do's and don'ts for singers when using a mic? Now, my dad was one of the guys who could belt it out and you'd still hear him and all of that stuff, And obviously, we're working with, you come from a bit of an older school generation. There's a new school generation in right now. it's debatable who's doing better or who's what. Our reference point has maybe been the older school, but like, what are some of the bad habits and the things that our singers can improve with? And it's like, if you, like you said early on, if you understand better, you do better, right?
Well, that's the thing. So, what is the microphone?
You see, this is what I knew you.
I mean,
you just
why does it exist?
Sure.
You know,
It's to amplify.
It's a requirement to assist in the amplification. It's part of this process. It's the first point of contact.
And it doesn't make my voice better.
No.
You're working
with... and this is the sad reality of, I've seen some young vocalists who...
live auto-tune, please.
They get a bit of money and they want to go buy the best mic out there. And they do, and then they have endless problems. Because they don't understand, number one, the full chain of events. The best microphone doesn't mean the best outcome. The best microphone exposes your mic technique to the next level, exposes your sound system, exposes your sound engineer, everything down the chain.
100%.
These days, if you're wearing in-ear monitors, you know, if you want to go buy a Neumann microphone or a really high-end microphone, but it's not conducive to your style of singing, you make your own life more horrible.
Yep.
Because the microphone picks up everything, and if you're not the dominant in that microphone, everything else is.
Yep.
Which means, you know, your use of the microphone. So understanding microphones, you know, technically we can go for hours. So there's different types of microphones. The biggest thing about a microphone that a vocalist needs to understand is proximity.
Yep.
So closeness. You know, the closer you are to a microphone, the more, I use the word dominant, but the more the direct sound is the main feature at the microphone. Because the microphone, just because you're pointing it at your mouth, doesn't mean it doesn't hear everything.
Yes.
There's noise in the environment. The loudest noise becomes the dominant. And if it's constant, it's easy. If it's not constant, it's not easy. And our vocal is not constant because we have to breathe, we have to talk, we have to mouth, we have to move. So where you hold the microphone is important. You need to understand the microphone itself, hand noise, your expression. Some microphones want to be close, some want to be further. Some are designed for a podium on a stand over there. Some are designed for tickling your tonsils, different types of things. And then some people, not so much these days. These days it's very fashionable to watch your heroes. You know, so if you used to watch your dad, or you watch Marley Kelly, or watch the mic technique, they did that because of a reason.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, the preamps, the gain structures, the microphones would distort, wouldn't be able to handle the belting. So you'd have to pull off the microphone. You'd actually be told, when you hit those notes, pull off the mic a bit. And it becomes a habit, you know. And on the lower notes, come in closer, because otherwise I have to adapt too much. So you get closer, you get warmer, you get deeper. But that means when you're trying to portray an intimate type of vocal sound, if you're close and on a microphone, you do get that really intimate sound. And if you're trying to be loud and aggressive, don't be on the microphone, be off the microphone. You know, that's why a lot of the old rock and roll stuff, the SM57s, which is traditionally an instrument microphone, that's what they're screaming into, you know, because it's...
Yeah, they were built for,
but the big thing is understand your tool. You know, if you're a vocalist, that's the only thing we really need you to understand well. And if you think that the microphone is now here, which means now the problem is now someone else's, there's the problem. If you're a soft, timid voice, the worst thing you can do is ask for more volume. Because, like I said, the microphone hears everything. So if I can turn up the microphone, and when you're by yourself, you're going to hear a significant change. But you're not singing by yourself. The drummer's going to start playing, the vocalist around you are going to start, the crowd, the audience. You know, the loudest choir in the world is any gospel scenario where the microphone hears everything.
Yep.
So if you're soft and timid and we do a sound check and now I'm happy, the minute we start, you're not happy because you're not the dominant sound on the microphone. You need to get on the microphone.
Yep.
But then once you do that, you also understand that the positioning of the microphone, even something like the angle, and if I use this little shaker, I'll close the brand. You know, a microphone is designed on an axis. So straight onto the vocal, you're on axis. Then you're off axis. So doing the lollipop Pastor Mark Hodgetts, puts the microphone down on his chin. You're pointing up your nose, you're going to be nasal.
Sure.
And if you're just talking, it's one thing, but if you're singing again, it's another problem. And then cupping the microphone, which is just a fashionable thing. When you grab the head of a microphone, the quickest way to explain it in layman's terms, if you take a little water balloon, fill it with water, put it in your hand and squeeze, somewhere between your fingers it's going to pop out. That's what the sound does. And that popping is what we call a lobe. It's a specific frequency that gets emphasized. So that's why you get that nasal sound, that dull sound. And depending on how you move your fingers, even the microphone changes. So if you're happy with your vocal, and then I had one artist that with his one hand would be fine, and when he swapped, he took the capsule and he swapped back's fine. It's just out of habit.
Oh wow!
And I would watch him, and I had an EQ that would switch on and off depending what hand his mic was in. But it's just, I wasn't going to get into
paid for this. I just get paid.
But it's just being aware of that.
Sure.
Understanding that, and so your thing about how can we help? Take the time to learn.
Okay.
Your vocal technique is important, but if you can't capture it, you're wasting your time. The sound guy can, there's an old saying, we've all heard it, garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
Whatever comes down that chain is what I can work with. And if you're not it, we struggle. So in most church environments, unfortunately, the minute someone is unsure, they turn down. So your classic example is a guitarist. When he doesn't know a song too well, he just turns down, he's going, looks like he's playing, but he's not there.
Oh my goodness.
I've confronted quite a few of them. But the same thing with vocalists. I've watched vocalists and you press solo and there's nothing. They're mouthing, but they're not singing because they don't know the song, or they don't know the words, or that something's not lacquer there. It's happened. How do you deal with that? It's the same thing as a guitarist.
Well, you'd often come to me and say, "You need to sort that out."
But that's the thing. You follow chain of command. If I had a problem with an artist, I'd often, even now, like with Starlight Classic, James Bathenswaite, which is the MD of the project, I would tell him the communication I'm going to have with the band. So that there's a clear line. So that he's aware I'm doing this, whether it be speaking with the drummer about just intensity in a certain song, the bassist about a tone, pianist about a patch, or playing upper register or something based on where we are. But I make clear that he knows what I'm talking about. And if it's something I've gone to him where I say, I don't think they should be playing, but it's not for me to tell them not to play, it's his job.
Yes.
Or they're not playing this or something like that, So
but now that's just sorry for interrupting you, but like that's just the thing about you, and maybe others as well, but I particularly have noticed you're outside of the box of just sound engineer. There's times you've come to me and gone, your guitarist is not in tune, hey? I'd be like, how do you, okay, thanks, appreciate that, but you're doing sound. How would you? So you're a bit extraordinary in that regard, and I think it's a gift, right?
Yes and no, in the sense of most successful sound engineers worldwide are musicians in some way or form.
Sure.
Creative, because you've got to understand what you're working with. Sure. If you're going to build a Lego set, the picture helps. Yes. You'll get there eventually without the picture if you've got some broad stroke, but if you've got the instructions, it's a lot easier and a lot quicker.
Sure.
Now, some guys are stuck on the instructions, so they take it letter by the law. So when they EQ a mic, they do it this way. When they tune a sound system, they click, tick the boxes, using the tools, all that. And you get a good outcome, but it's too technical sometimes. Some guys mix very technical. Some guys mix completely too
And that's creative. My point, is you know your craft really well. Well, this is my experience with you.
I'm getting there.
Yes, Cristo is getting there. What an amazing sound engineer with so much experience and so much wealth and knowledge within the industry. This conversation was so enriching, was so engaged that we felt it would be important just to break it up a little bit for that information to settle into our listeners. And we in essence didn't want to bore you with all the technical jargon, and so we're gonna make it part 1 and then come back next week for part 2. So stay engaged, and I'm hoping that you enjoyed this conversation with Cristo. We are going to be back, although, next week with a continuation of the conversation with Cristo Hattingh, an amazing sound engineer.